Hi everyone, this is Traven here, and today I have a very special friend, a guest here, who is the millennial speaker. And I'm about to ask him more about how do we actually engage millennials in terms of the workplace today in year of the 2022, right? So let's actually welcome Vivek, the millennial speaker specialist.
Hi everybody. Hi Traven. Thanks for having me here today. Pleasure to be here.
All right. So not forget to mention that he actually published a book called The Engaging Millennials: 7 Fundamentals to Recruit, Reward, and Retain the Largest Generation in the Workforce. So that gives us a strong reason to understand how do we better engage the millennials. And I have prepared a list of questions to ask Vivek, right? But of course, first of all, you might be wondering, you might be, thinking, what exactly are the people called the millennials versus Gen Z, right? Because we have been hearing this term of boomers, etc. So I think if I'm not wrong, millennials are those who born between 1980 to the year of 1995,
Yeah.
right? So that's between the age of 21 to 45.
Yeah.
And
But
those
not
who
21. 1995 is probably about 25 now.
oh, okay, so 25 to
Yeah.
40 plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Oh,
And of course,
40,
those Gen
42,
Z would then be the people who is born after 1996
Yes.
onwards, right?
Yeah.
So they are aged between around 19 or younger.
No, 24.
24 and
24
younger.
and younger. Yeah.
Cool. So, without further ado, how about you give a quick sharing about yourself first?
Okay, sure. Hi everyone. My name is Vivek Yani. I'm a millennial speaker. I am the founder of Millennial Minds. We run a leadership and training consultancy. And basically, I've written 2 books, Empowering Millennials and Engaging Millennials. I have a third book coming out, Millennial Leaders, in the next few weeks, I guess. Right? That's a little bit of an introduction about who I am.
Sure, since
Yeah.
you're an expert of millennials, right? I would be curious, first of all, to hear from you about something you know about millennials, including myself, right? Because I'm 1990. Is there anything you know about millennials that most likely most of us wouldn't know?
Yeah, well, actually, it's interesting. The generation topic is very nuanced. We all know there's different generations,
Yes.
but we actually don't know the exact details. Like, for example, if we ask anyone on the street, right, do you know who's a millennial? They may actually think they are not a millennial. Like, that's what happened to me when I first started out. I thought that I was Gen Y.
Okay.
And everyone else is younger than me is millennials, right? But turns out that there's a specific age group. There's an age, the years that will also be one of the determining factors for generations. So, one thing that I realize is that a lot of people think millennials is also, something that I used to be a millennial. People sometimes they say that I used to be millennial.
Oh yeah.
I
So we can't change the status, right? If I'm a millennial, means
You are always a
I will
millennial.
always millennial.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
okay.
So a lot of people tend to have. I mean, the layman. When I'm a layman, they will have this understanding. But I think one thing that a lot of people may not know is that there is a micro generation from 1979 to 1984. They call them the Xennials. Xennials.
Okay.
These are the people who kind of like they have their foot in the analog. That means they know how life used to be before digital, and they also witness the transformation into digital. So they are called the Xennials because they can relate to the Gen X generation, and they can also relate to the millennial generation. They are called the Xennials. They are called the geriatric millennials, the so-called old millennials.
Okay.
Right. So that's the so-called wave 1 of the millennials, lah. Yeah, that small group over there.
Okay. So we are the first generation that actually get in touch with regards to the internet technology, right? Cool. And then the Gen Z would then be the people who is born with,
Yeah, born
that
and they
sense.
see the smartphone when they are babies.
Yeah. Watch all the videos. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've actually read your book on the 7 fundamentals, right, to recruit, reward, and retain the largest generation. So, but given that you have mentioned quite a lot of things, key fundamentals like being futuristic and being fun in terms of the work environment to attract them, as well as finding fulfillment at work, form strong friendships with those people rather than just work, right? And also you mentioned about forward framework, fantastic feedback, freedom, etc. Among all these key factors and all that, which do you think is actually the most critical, important for us to manage, engage the millennials?
Right. So this is a very interesting question you ask because it's not about what's best for everyone. It's about what's best for you. right? So, for example, if you're an organization that is already doing a lot of recruitment, right, and you feel like your recruitment is not an issue, but retention is an issue,
Okay, okay,
right?
yes, yes.
Then probably you want to look into what are the things you already have that's allowing you to attract, and what are things that's making you lose your existing talent. So maybe you are not giving them enough training and mentoring and guidance. Maybe the managers and the leaders there are not giving feedback frequently enough, and they are not giving feedback that inspires them. So as a result, maybe you're losing people because there is not enough engagement done on the people that's already there with your team. So the question should not be what's best for you. It's about what's the most required for you at this point in time. And out of these 7, right, you can look at which is the things that are highest and which are the things that are lower. So I actually have a scorecard that I talk about in the book that tells you these are the areas you're good in based on the questions. We have about 40 questions, right? We can see which are the areas you're good at and which are the areas you're not good at, and from there you can tell which area you need to really focus on, and that area is the most important for you.
Got it, got it. So I think it's about you're giving us 7 ideas for us to assess, or for any organizations to assess where we stand in terms of the score for each factor, and then to determine which is our weakest, and from there we actually.
And then you work your way up from there,
got
right?
it,
How
got
do
it.
you
I
improve
think
your
this
score
one
there?
is indeed very interesting, which I captured from your book, is that most companies are doing the right thing to attract the talents, but lack the management, lack the management that can truly engage with them.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So what I feel is that we always tend to have overpromise and underdeliver. So like when you come into this, we can do this, we can do that. We want to do that to attract the talents. But once they are there, right, we set our sights on the next talent, right? How do we now bring in? So the question is, are we doing enough as leaders, as management, for our people, for the people who have trusted us, right? So we need to start with who we are and make sure that who we are is a happy group, right? Are they already engaged? Are they already happy? Do they feel like their voice is heard? A lot of the times, right, a lot of young people, they go into organizations wanting to contribute, and the way they contribute is through the energy, the excitement, the enthusiasm, and also all these ideas that they have. But when managers or leaders don't see that as valuable, they stop contributing and they start to disengage. And then when they ask, hey, give us ideas, they say, no point. You're not going to listen to my ideas. You're not going to give me a platform to experiment and see. So the fear of failure is very evident in such cultures. So that's why we really need to focus on making sure that the person that we have is already engaged. And that's why I say instead of having exit interviews, we should be looking at stay interviews. Why do you continue to stay here? Why do you continue to be promotive of this organization?
How frequent do you think that conversation should be, in terms of like, not wait till people resign, then you have the exit interview, but you're suggesting that we should have a stay interview maybe how frequent should that?
Maybe we can do every 6 months at least, right? Because people who tend to quit, right, when during the exit interviews, they actually have been thinking of quitting for over a year. Now it's just the right time now. I just
maybe
feel
when they got a better offer, then they resign, then they share what's the concerns,
Correct.
what's their ideas.
So everything lined up, then they quit, but they've been thinking about it. The seed of exiting has started long back, and if you don't intervene in between, that means it just shows that you're not doing enough for your people and you're not checking in on the pulse of the people, right? So having those kind of interventions and activities to engage them is important to make sure that they stay longer. You're not going to get them to stay forever, but if you can extend their stay from the typical 2 years to 4 years or 6 years, that's a huge productivity increase and profitability as well for the organization.
And also savings on
Yeah.
recruitment, right?
Yeah.
Cost, right?
Yes.
I think turnover is something that most companies should also pay attention to, not just about finding talents, getting the best talents in, but really engage them and ensure that they churn out in terms of the best productivity results for the companies, rather than for just a short period, but really for a longer period, right? Okay, cool. So how does that different from the half a year performance review chat or the typical one-on-one with the manager? How does it differ in terms of the conversation? Is there any questions or topics? How should the managers, employees be asking them to ensure that their employees, their team members are being really engaged?
Right. So it shouldn't be just a casual, hey, how are you doing?
Yes, correct.
Are you good? Oh,
Correct.
okay.
I mean,
good.
that should be still ongoing in terms
Yeah.
of like caring for the team members. But is there any things that the managers, like those who are watching right now, they should be asking, especially maybe first-time managers and those who are new, who are not sure how to manage all this group of millennials, right?
Yeah, I think the best way to look into it is first have a question system to really identify. So, for example, if I were to ask you to rate from 1 to 10, how happy are you? They can give a number,
Oh,
right?
okay,
How
okay.
happy, how engaged do you feel? Right, they give a number. Then from let's say they give a number 5. Right?
Okay.
Okay. So why do you give 5? What were the positive reasons you give 5? Right. Then okay, what do you think would now make this 5 into a 10? That will get them to think. Okay.
That's a very coaching model
Yes.
approach, right? As a coach myself, I know where you're coming from. I think it's through asking and let the person share, speak in terms of their concern, their happiness or not.
Yes.
And then it's being a manager, it's more like being a coach for them.
Exactly.
Not about telling them good or bad, but also give them space to
Yes.
share.
Right. So get them to share, right? And then from there say, okay, in the next 3 months, what can I do to make you feel even more welcome? How can I help you be more productive? What are some of the things that you want to see? So I think having those forward framework conversations is very important to really map out, how this person can see a future with this organization under this leader, and or maybe in other ways as well, right? So it's really important to have that skill set of coaching is very important for managers, especially first-time managers, because a lot of the younger generation are used to having adult figures like their parents, their school counselors and teachers being very caring and concerning about them when they were growing up, as opposed to last time. Children are not meant to be seen, not meant to be heard. They don't have a voice. Listen to what I say. Don't talk back against me. Even if you have objection, is like you are rude. Even if it's a valid objection. So those days are kind of gone. That kind of leadership style is phasing out, right? So what we want to do is to have more of a mentor approach, a coach approach to engaging with the younger generation.
Got it. I think this point seems like should be adopted a lot more frequently, among all the managers when they speak or when they have their one-to-one chat with the team members. I think that should certainly be helpful. But besides that, is there any other point, right? Do you think it's like maybe hardest to implement, or anything that's missed by most employers?
I think one of the things that we see today is that in Singapore we are a conflict avoidant society. That means we don't want to create conflict.
Try to avoid
try to make sure we don't brush against each other. But there is also another way, which is to give, like say for example, something didn't go according to plan. There is a way for us to give feedback that actually inspires them. Everyone.
An example?
So for example, typically we look at feedback as a seagull method. That means I come in, I score, say all the feedback, and then I walk out, storm out of the room. That's the typical boss behavior, because he's coming from a level of authority, a level of I hired you to do this, so you need to do this, that kind. But a feedback that inspires really helps when you have a coaching conversation, like I said earlier on, and the intention is to nurture the person, not to make the person feel bad. A lot of the feedback typically makes the person feel bad, feel like they're not good enough, they're not worthy enough, they're not adding value to the team, they're a waste of space, So you don't want to do that. As a leader, it is your responsibility to inspire the people in your team to live up to your expectations. Inspire, not force them, but really inspire them to do that. And the way we can do that is to make sure that the person feels cared for, appreciated for. So when you're doing any kind of feedback, it is not enough for you to just say these are the areas you need to work on, but it is also important that there is a 5-to-1 ratio of appreciation. So for every one level of criticism, are you also appreciating the person on a regular basis on the different things that they're doing right? I think that kind of a culture and that kind of a practice is
Is that
still
the
missing.
sandwich feedback approach?
It's not about the approach, but it's more of, okay, even before I'm giving you the feedback, I've already been appreciating you on a regular basis.
Got it. So that when
I've
you
been
give the
taking
feedback-
notice of you and the things that you've been doing right, because they want to feel seen, they want to feel heard, and when you appreciate,
Those are key traits of millennials. If you're millennials, you agree with that, all right?
Yeah.
I do, right?
yeah, it is. I think it's not just millennial. Everyone wants that, but just that last time in the older generation time, job opportunities were less, so they actually tolerate toxic work cultures. Because I need this job, I cannot let go. I must go through the fire. But in today's day and age, when opportunities are a lot more, millennials can be a little bit more picky. If they don't like the boss, they can still choose to find another one. And we see this in, I mean, recently we've also seen quite a few incidents where people go online to complain about millennials, and then we see two camps, one that
Yes,
supports the young person and one that supports the boss. But typically what we do see is that, okay, if the boss goes to social media to talk about these kind of incidents, that means the boss lacks that kind of leadership skills. He's still in that old mindset where I'm the boss, you need to listen to me, this is how things have to be done. But I think times have changed drastically today, so we need to change the approach on how we, you know, give feedback, how we inspire people, how we really relate to them, and more on a friendly level, bring them up as our team members.
Cool. As you're sharing, right, I realize that maybe is that the potential reasons of the recent trend of like quiet quitting, right? I mean, this term has been popping up in the news, social media, and first of all, what that is, right? I think from my understanding is that people feel or give up to achieve above and beyond. That to me is my understanding of quiet quitting. And based on what I've shared, it seems like the disengagement, seems like the gap of understanding that has resulted in this quiet quitting. Is that true, or what's your thoughts or
Yeah,
concerns?
definitely. Quiet quitting is a result of, I think there are two camps. People who have already been driven, they've been so driven to a point that they are expecting something. Maybe they're expecting a promotion, expecting a raise and stuff. They work themselves to the bones, but they don't see the results, and then they start to quiet quit. And then there's people who, I don't really want to. I don't see that as an ambitious thing. I don't really want that, so I'm just going to do the bare minimum. I just need the job, but I don't really need to be an A. I don't need to be a high flyer in that sense, right? So there are two camps. I think the people who we typically see, the young people, when they come in, they want to be like the high flyers, right? And then they try to do different things to impress and to have a certain level of performance. But when they see that their effort is not recognized, they are not appreciated, they are not acknowledged, then they say, what's the point? I work so hard, I miss out on family time, I miss out on this. And then at the end of the day, I'm still in the same place, same position. There's no progress, right? Some people may say this as impatience, but for them, they are saying that I'm actually adding value. Why am I not seeing any kind of response? So what we need to do is we need to look into having conversations with them. What were your expectations? There was a mismatch in expectations somewhere along the way.
So do you think is the expectation not realistic by the millennials, or are the employees really not giving enough to them, right?
I think it's a lack of dialogue.
Okay.
It's a lack of dialogue between two parties, where of course the expectations may be different, but when you have the dialogue, at least we can look to bridge the gap between the expectations and come closer to a compromise of some sort, right? Instead of just letting the person, quiet quit and then disengage, and then that actually weighs down in terms of productivity for the organization. And other people, once they kind of realize you're quiet quitting, it also lowers the morale. If your leader is quiet quitting, it lowers the morale of everyone in the team, right? That means they don't see that they don't have any inspiration from the management and the leadership of the company. So it is a lose-lose situation for the individual as well as for the company as well.
So now with this trend kind of like ongoing in many other parts of the world, and maybe it's already happening in some organizations, etc. So is there any other thing besides say having dialogue with the seems to be a key solution? Is there anything that managers, leaders, companies can do to prevent things from happening and trying to be a lot more engaging with the millionaires and their workforce?
Yeah, I think like I said, what we really need to look into is what exactly do millennials want from the workplace. It's not the exact same things, because for them, after a certain point, money is not the most important thing. Meaning becomes a lot more important. The fulfillment of doing work, and they may want to do it in terms of maybe, for example, contributing back by taking up extra roles, right? Maybe they want to be part of they want to run an employee resource group. They have something that maybe they're very passionate about LGBTQ, and then they can run an employee resource group around that and then raise awareness. Maybe they have something around bias that they want to talk about. So whatever it is about being able to listen to them, see whether we can provide that. So are we able to give them more fulfillment in the work that they're doing? Second thing is, as an organization, are we looking into building more friendships within them? So it's not just about knowing you and the people in your department, but interdepartmental conversations as well. Are you able to network within the organization, right? So do you have internal career fairs? If they want to, like, maybe go into a different department, is it easy for them? Is there an opportunity given for them to do it? Or is it based on just grapevine, people say, people ask, and then you apply and then you get, right? If there's more opportunities like that, because sometimes they may like the work that they're doing, but they're looking for something more because that is a little bit more exciting. They feel like they kind of already learned all these things that they needed to learn here, and they want to do something, try out different things. Right? Maybe it's not about a promotion, but maybe it's just going one circle, right? Trying out
making
different
the work a lot more fun. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So how about the idea of having like many different sports interest groups?
Yeah, exactly.
Groups and clubs?
Right. It's about building that community within the organization, as opposed to thinking you come here, you do work, and you go. I mean, last time is like that. I come here, I do work, I go back home. That's the end of it. But today, because we are so interspersed with, digital, working from home, working from anywhere, it kind of is. It's kind of all mixed up already, right? So if it is already like that, then why not make it in such a way that we can further engage them? So I think, if I remember correctly, Alibaba actually has this initiative where if you are single, they will actually matchmake. They don't have to do that, but why do they do it, right? Because they understand the profile of the people. They understand that we really want to appreciate them, we want to help them out in this area, and they understand that it's, if more and more people can find a life partner here, it becomes a lot more easier for them as well, right? So they identified an issue and they look into it. Another is Razer actually, they are all in front of the computer, they're gamers and stuff, right? So they actually make sure that they have helped people, those fitness coaches come into the office to force them to exercise, because they know otherwise you go home also you'll be in front of the computer. True. Right? So having these kind of initiatives showcase that the management cares about the people. When they care about the people also care about the management, and then it becomes it increases your net promoter score as an employee, of course.
Now you talk about it, I definitely appreciate my employer because they are giving us the gym membership as well as many opportunities to join different sports interest group clubs like badminton, cycling, which I hosted myself. I'm also one of the volunteer leads, which will organize volunteering opportunity events for people to participate. Like Mid-Autumn Festival, etc. We have yoga at Sky Park, NBS. So I think those initiatives is definitely helpful to engage the millennials, and maybe not just millennials, but also maybe like Gen Z, etc. Right? I think those initiatives also always works, right?
Yeah.
How about if I may ask that now, earlier part we talked about more on the employee perspective, what can we do? But how about on the angle for millennials, right? Is there any tips or advice for those millennials that how can they actually adapt to this, corporate world whereby it may not always be able to fulfill their needs, right? You can't expect all employees to fulfill 100% of the needs, right? So any tips for the millennials, how can they adapt to the corporate world?
Definitely. I think one of the best ways to shortcut all the learning lessons is to find yourself mentors within the organization and outside of the organization. So what you want to do is you want to look at somebody who's maybe 3 to 5 years ahead of you, and you want to reach out to them. They may not be in your particular same organization, which is good because they kind of understand the role, and they also understand what are the things that is important for you to navigate, and go and ask them if they are able to be a mentor of some sort, right? So it is about networking with people on LinkedIn, connecting with them, adding value to them, and asking them if they are willing to mentor. If you cannot find someone from LinkedIn, then look out for these mentoring opportunities that are there. A lot of associations actually have mentoring opportunities where they match you with someone of your desired profile. So if you have a profile that you have in mind, you can actually go to them, and these initiatives are usually free. They are not even a paid thing, because it's a way of giving back to the community. So finding these kind of mentors in your life will really help you to understand the realities of corporate life, help you to be 2 steps ahead, right, and help you to realize what are the best practices that you need to put in place in order for you to grow. You can also identify, is this the path I really want to go, or is there a different path I can take, by having these kind of conversations with someone who's been through something. So you don't want someone who's already at the top, because maybe he cannot relate to
Got
you,
it, got it.
but you want someone who's maybe just 3 to 5 years ahead of you.
So I think the keyword here is for us or for millennials, for anyone maybe to be a lot more proactive in terms of getting someone as a coach, as a mentor to help them with their career journey, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, okay. Then how about in terms of like the Gen Z then, because we talk so much about millennials. So is there any difference in terms of the Gen Z, which is born after 1995, 1996, right? And they are so much younger. Do you think there's still differences now between, versus Gen Y we talk about Gen millennials, and then now there's Gen Z, much younger generation. And is there any further differences we have to actually adopt to engage them? Because right now I also have like interns who is way younger and they are likely the Gen Z, right? So is there any advice or for millennials leaders, managers to manage the Gen Z going forward?
Yeah. So if you look at the four generations, right, we always had generation gap. Even in 1980s, there are 4 or 5 generations in the workplace. But the thing was, the gap was not so big. Right? Baby boomer and Gen Xer, how big do you think is the gap? Right? Maybe smaller. But from Gen X to millennials, maybe the gap is bigger because there was a lot of technological change, social change, everything, people's behaviors changed, right? So the gap is biggest between the baby boomer Gen X and millennial Gen Z. From millennial to Gen Z, again, I think the gap is there, but it's maybe not as big, but it is there, right? So what we do notice in the Gen Zs is they are a lot more focused on the planet, right? On very being conscious consumerism.
Purpose driven.
They are very purpose driven.
Right?
Millennials also, but these are they are even more extreme, right? So for them, right, they use social media to an extent where it's not even a place for them to spend time to entertain themselves. But if they want to do research, they go to social media, right? They will actually use that as a platform for them to find all the information. They don't go to Google, they go to these TikTok, Instagram to really find out information that they want. So these are the platforms that they are using to really identify and find the people and answers that they're looking for. Now, in terms of motivation, I think for the Gen Zs, they are also looking at there is also this thing of wanting to grow really fast within the organization, very driven. They want to prove themselves. I see a lot of similarities in that sense with this younger generation. So these are the kind of things that I've noticed so far. But we are still studying because they are still coming into the workforce from their school graduation and all that. Yeah.
True. All right, so that's really sums up in terms of all the key questions I'm keen to find out from the millennial speaker expert here. Is there anything you want to share regards to the ever-changing landscape or workforces for the general public out there, regardless of if there's any generation gap or not? From your experience, vast experience of like speaking to thousands, hundreds of people, in this space, right? Is there any last advice or is there anything to share or from your
Well, I think the first thing we want to look into is, as if you're from the management point of view, is am I doing enough to engage the people in my organization? That's number one, right? The second thing we want to look into is as we are going deeper and deeper into technology, data is critical, right? So we cannot just do things based on assumptions. We need to have data, and to have data, you need to be recording the right kind of data. Right, so if we feel that our employees are not engaged, do you have the right data to support it? Right, you need to look into data and not be afraid of it, because as we go further and further into the future, data is going to be the one that paints the picture, the accurate picture. But for that, you need to if you get the right data, you get the right picture. If you get the wrong data, you also get the wrong picture. So I think embracing data is one of the key things that is going to be crucial for organizations moving forward when it comes to engaging with the people in their teams. And the third thing is to look into intergenerational collaboration as a key important initiative. Why I say that is because if, for example, I was just having a conversation with another panelist in India. She actually mentioned, they asked the question, would you, she's a millennial, she's a chef, she owns a bakery and all that, and she has about 20 odd staff, right? Well, up and coming entrepreneur. And they asked this question, would you ever hire someone from the older generation in your organization? Because everyone she has is millennials and Gen Zs. She said no, right? I wouldn't, because I feel like I cannot connect with them. I feel like if I want to explain something that's related to technology, I really have to slow down, and it's very hard for me to connect. And that is the danger we have when we don't have intergenerational collaboration. If one generation doesn't like the other, they distance themselves, and when they distance themselves, the older generation actually have a lot of tacit knowledge. They have a lot of secrets, a lot of understanding of people, of the work and the processes, that it will not get transferred over if there is this gap that's there and there's this distance that's there. So having intergenerational collaboration should be a key initiative to make sure that your older and younger generation work well together, and they're bonded and they're more productive as a team, as opposed to being in, okay, all the young people are here and all the old people are there. I think that is a very sad way for us to be. So let's focus on intergenerational collaboration so that we can have more productive teams.
Right, thanks Vivi for sharing. I think I really learned a lot, especially about the approaches, about the philosophy on engaging these millennials and the different workforce, and being collaborative, as well as having the open dialogue. All that definitely helps a lot, and it's never about which method, which fundamentals actually work the best, but really to understand where we are, or which stages you are at in terms of your organizations, and then find a gap and then try to then improve from there. Right, thanks so much Vivek for your time. And if there's people who is interested to learn more from your sharing, how can they connect with you?
Oh yeah, the best place would be to connect with me on LinkedIn. Right, you can just search my name Vivek Iyani, and you should be able to find me. If you can't find me there, then you can.
I'll
find
put a
me
link there, right?
Yeah.
So you can just click and then get connected.
Yeah. That's
Now it's
the
for me,
best way.
Traven here, so you can get connected with me over LinkedIn as well. And thanks so much for your time watching, and thanks Vivek once again.
Thank you.